a pretty clear picture of what happened today, not what happens next. So I want to bring in Congressman John Katko, top Republican on the House Homeland Security Committee. Congressman, thanks for taking the time again with us tonight.
Thank you for having me here.
The U.S., as you know, has completed its withdrawal from Afghanistan, including every U.S. service member now out of the country, ending our 20-year presence there. I know you were opposed to this withdrawal, so first I just want to get your take on how this all played out in the last 2 weeks since the Taliban took Kabul.
Well, I just heard a general say, or one of the military leaders say, he was, quote unquote, conflicted about leaving Afghanistan and leaving the terrorists behind. Conflicted is a colossal understatement. And he also said that they did not get everyone out. Those are two things that we were assured that wasn't going to happen, and now we have that. We have a terrorist state, a state-sponsored terrorism with the Taliban that exists in Afghanistan right now. And that does not portend well going forward. But I can't imagine what's going through the minds of the people who helped the Americans for 20 years watching that last plane take off knowing they're not on it. Or the Americans that were left behind watching that plane take off knowing that their lives are in danger. What happened and how did we let this get to this point? It's beyond my imagination.
Well, you've also maintained that the U.S. should have kept some forces in Afghanistan long term, as we have in places like Korea and Germany after conflicts there decades ago. But President Biden has said that was a false choice, that the Taliban would have again carried out attacks on Americans if we had remained in the country there. But it's not Germany, it's not Korea, this is Afghanistan. So the question is, was there really an option to stay in the country without continuing to risk more American lives?
You know what? There's always a risk of American lives. That's what military people do. But you know what? From strength, you have peace, right? And we kept it by strength. We kept peace in Germany against all odds. By strength, we kept peace in Korea against all odds. And by strength, we kept peace in Japan against all odds. No one was saying we had to be in a war footing in Afghanistan, but maintaining a presence there so we could have a finger on the pulse of what's going on there is critically important for our homeland. We have an awful lot of terrorist activities that are already obviously going on in Afghanistan, and now they have a foothold without us being there to come to the homeland. But let's not forget, they left a lot of us behind, and they're saying a couple hundred. Who knows what the exact number is, but I can tell you from hearing from my constituents that there's an awful lot of people who helped Americans and an awful lot of citizens, American citizens, that are behind enemy lines right now, and their lives are in great peril. And how the heck did we let this happen?
In that vein, you and I spoke a few weeks ago before Kabul fell, and you warned then that Afghanistan would return to a pre-9/11 posture and could become a breeding ground for terrorists again if the Taliban took over. We've already seen that group ISIS-K emerge there with the deadly attack that killed 13 U.S. service members. Do you believe that the Taliban will allow these groups to grow, or is it in their best interest to stop these groups so they can keep a grip on the country?
Hey, the bottom line is, even if you try and say that the Taliban was working with the U.S., which I don't subscribe to that, I think they may have just been trying to get them the heck out of there. They couldn't stop ISIS even under the circumstances right now. So how are they going to be able to stop it going forward if they want to? And if they don't want to, we got a real problem. Let's not forget, there's another group there that has been laying pretty quiet right now, but is ready to metastasize again, and that's Al-Qaeda, who Taliban refuses to tamp down and refuses to go against. So it stands to reason that every possible scenario that you see going forward is that this is going to return to a more of a terrorist safe haven, or the world headquarters for terrorism, if you will. That's exactly where it was 9/11. You couple that with what's going on our southern border and how porous those borders are, and how the fact of the matter is that a large number of known and suspected terrorists have come across that border this year and have been apprehended already. We've got a real problem on our hands, and we've got to have our radars up all over the United States going forward. And that's my job as on the Homeland Security Committee, to try and keep our citizens safe.
So when the Biden administration is pressed with that very question, they say their over-the-horizon presence will allow the U.S. to contain any terrorist threat through airstrikes and counterterrorism operations, as they've already done in recent days. What is your view on that? Can a nearby U.S. military presence still help contain the threat before it spreads without the risk to U.S. service members who would be on the ground?
There's zero chance of that. And the reason is intel is gold. And if you don't have intel on the ground, you have nothing. You may be able to get lucky once in a while and find a target, but those targets that we found all over ISIS territory, all over Iraq, over the years to help tamp down ISIS was based on intel. We do not have boots on the ground, so we therefore do not have intel. We don't have the money, the resources, or the brave men and women from America and from the people who helped us that are going to help us now because we're not there and we've abandoned them. And that it's like a free-for-all. It's like giving kids key to a candy store and telling them not to eat the candy. I mean, that's what we got right now, and it's a real problem. And I'm really concerned about the United States. And I can tell you, I'm not doing this alone. Ray Kelly, two-time commissioner at the New York City Police Department, as well as head of Customs and Border Patrol, said that major cities all across the United States are already ramping up their anti-terror activities out of concern for the increased threat that this poses.
Just quickly, Congressman, before you go, I don't have the numbers in front of me, but it's something like 70% of the country, I believe, was for withdrawing from Afghanistan. So with that said, you talking about how much of a catastrophe this is, what happens now, and could you have balanced that out in any way?
Yeah, I mean, I guess you ask those same people, do they want to see Americans left behind and the Taliban control? I bet 95% would say no. You want to see a terrorist state develop? 95% would say no. We all wanted the war to end. We all wanted our soldiers to come home. But sometimes you need to have a presence, a peacekeeping presence, or just a presence to let them know that we're there and to develop the intel to tamp down future violence and future problems. We did it magically after World War II and after the Korean War, and we should have done it here. But regardless, going forward, without boots on the ground, we're going to have a real problem in the United States. And it's my job and all of us on Homeland Security to redouble our efforts to try and do everything we can to keep you all safe.
All right, Congressman John Katko, top Republican on the House Homeland Security Committee. We thank you again for your time tonight.
Sure thing. Thank you, and God bless.